Hello, everyone, and welcome to our new instalments of Charity Chats. I'm James Saunders from Moore Kingston Smith, and joining me today, as ever, Catherine Ostromji from Shakespeare Martineau and Charles Mosquita from Quilted Cheviot. We've got a few topics to run through today, so we're going to dive straight in with some bits and pieces that have caught my eye over the last week or two. The first one is an article I saw about a social mobility charity which was defending its links to a fossil fuel company, BP, who were providing some funds for particular projects that a social mobility foundation were undertaking. It comes in light of a number of charities which have cut their ties to fossil fuels over the last couple of years, Save the Children, the Royal Up House, etc. This one rather bucks the trend a little bit and goes against the prevailing winds, I think. But I thought we should have a chat about that and any thoughts on quite how this all pans out for charities. What are the options? What are your responsibilities? Catherine, ladies first. Can I come to you first?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought this was more of a case-by-case basis because I find it interesting the examples of Royal Opera House, Save the Children. They could afford, I think, to turn down funding from BP. Social Mobility Foundation is more of a, hand-to-mouth organisation. What they've got coming in, they spend on their activities. They're not sitting on huge endowments that they can say, well, that's fine, we'll turn down this funding, we don't need it. And also the programme that was being funded was about aspiring professionals. So I imagine BP have experience of this where they're not getting people from different backgrounds coming in and working for them, and they want to get to the grassroots of that problem. And also the bit I really took issue with in the article was one of these mentors that had stepped down said that BP works in an industry that is, quote, harming children. I thought, well, that's not actually what I would say BP does as an organisation. So I think it disappeared down a rabbit hole, or just, I think was all becoming a bit holier than thou. And I would back Social Mobility Foundation here to say they have taken a view that they need that funding. They were happy to accept it. They know what they're going to use it for. And they are happy to defend that working arrangement that they've obviously thought long and hard about and have stuck with it. I think there is the concern that now the slightest whiff of criticism, charities roll over and get their tummies tickled to say, well, we're not going to fight it, it's just not worth the aggro. And I think there just need to be a bit of pushback. So I thought, yeah, they've taken the right approach to stick with it.
Do you think BP eventually spend their money or donate the money to a charity anyway? Even if the Social Mobility Foundation in this case decided that they weren't going to accept it, I mean, the money will find its way into the charity sector anyway, won't it, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it absolutely will. Yeah. And so then there is the argument, and I think as a supporter of a charity, I would think, why have you turned down funding that they were willing to give you? I think that's almost a, real no-brainer example of, well, why would I continue to support you if you're not going to help yourselves? I think. Yeah,
understood. Charles, you've been very patient, smouldering away.
I mean, I like Catherine. I applaud the charity for standing up and being robust in its response. I think I really worry that charities are getting put under pressure from lazy thinking, which doesn't necessarily think through the issues. I mean, the whole thing about harm to children. I mean, sorry, every company, you could probably make that accusation around, fast food companies and obesity and everything else. And the other thing is, of course, we still drive around in cars and fill them up with petrol, probably produced by BP. We still heat our homes. So you can take the view that BP has to be part of the solution, like every other oil company, if we're worried about climate change. And I think we need to think a little bit broader on these things. These are not black and white issues in any shape or form. I think what does actually, from a trustee's point of view, and certainly I've been having conversations within the boards that I'm involved with, is from a reputational perspective, is where should you be taking money? And I think having that conversation in advance and being very clear about that is helpful. But I think we need to be careful about turning away money as well. I think there has to be a very clear reason not to take it, because actually who's going to suffer is your beneficiaries at the end of the day. And I think if we get a reputation of not taking money, from individuals or companies, I think that is a very dangerous route, and something I think that the chair of the Charity Commission has been alluding to in some of his comments recently in the press.
Okay. Right. Yeah, there was also, what also caught my eye was a slight disagreement between the Telegraph newspaper and the charity, the Collections Trust. The Telegraph wrote an article, or published an article, criticising the Collections Trust for, it seems, promoting some resources that refer to inclusive terminology, in particular, maybe referring to Hamas fighters as freedom fighters rather than obviously terrorists, which is what the media likes to call them. BBC doesn't. The Collections Trust, I mean, it's quite a lengthy article, you know, taxpayer-funded charity, telling everyone to call Hamas freedom fighters. The Collections Trust rebutted it very, very quickly, and quite lengthy narrative, saying that the items, the material that was referred to was part of a third-party resource kit, which it had linked to previously, hadn't seen the actual material, took it down straight away as soon as it saw it, and generally suggested that the Telegraph article was A, misleading, and B, presumptive about quite how involved the charity was, the taxpayer-funded charity was, in promoting this material. We've talked about this sort of thing before, about, you know, the combination of social media plus, you know, it seems a bit of a wave of almost a vendetta against charities where they are even remotely seen to be, you know, against the public interest. Again, thoughts really, Charles? I'll come to you first. Thoughts on, you know, and also how a charity might respond in that. Actually, it seemed to me that the Collections Trust did a good job of responding, but I've got to wonder how many people read the article in the Telegraph versus how many people read the rebuttal. Probably, you know, the numbers are disproportionate.
I think they responded really well. Actually, I thought it was very robust and swift, and I think they got their point across. I think we'll put a link up on this so that people can go and have a look at it, because it is, I think, worth looking. Unfortunately, I think this is the modern world, and every charity is vulnerable. As a trustee, I've had at least 2, if not 3 occasions where we've been in the firing line from one publication or another, whether it's the media, social media, or print. And I have to say, from a trustee's perspective, it is quite a scary place to be. And I think certainly, again, trying to pre-plan for it, so have some thought about how you might react, is definitely worthy of a conversation. And I think particularly if you're in an area which could get picked up quite easily, I would certainly have some sort of crisis media type sort of thought process in there, so you would know exactly what to do. But unfortunately, I'm afraid, you know, charities have seen it's fair game, and people can really write whatever they like. And in reality, you know, and going to lawyers and trying to stop something is extraordinarily expensive. It's time consuming. And I'm not sure it gets you to where you want to get to, because people just phrase it in a way that they can get away with it. And sadly, the media today, you just need to read the headlines and then the articles. It's all really about clickbait, isn't it? If trying to get people's attention to read something. And I just don't know what you can do about it, other than treat that this is the normal way of life, and there's sufficient noise out there, and just hope that you're not going to be that big a target that people will remember.
Yeah, as you say, you can end up in the right, proven in the right, and it not do you much good whatsoever at all. The damage has already been done. A lot of insurance policies these days do have crisis management elements to them. It's always worth looking at your insurance policy, just, you know, if the worst does happen, and see. I've certainly seen organisations benefit from some actually quite surprising crisis management facilities to go with insurance policies. It's always interesting. It's worth saying that the Collections Trust themselves said that the Telegraph didn't contact them They're just published. So that, you know, and that seems to me to be a bit disingenuous, really.
I think
You
it
know,
was
just
worse. Yeah, I think it was worse, James, because the article I read said they did get emailed. The Collections Trust were emailed by the Telegraph. Telegraph said, this is the first anyone knows about this. We share best practice. It was a third-party article and a glossary in a third-party article that they hadn't known about. As soon as it came to their attention, they removed it. And they told the reporter that, and the reporter went ahead and published the article anyway, knowing it was a non-story, knowing that it wasn't based on true fact. So actually, when I look at the Telegraph versus the Collections Trust, I think the Collections Trust absolutely spot on in terms of their response. You just wonder whether it just needs to be this kind of nip by charities to say, get your facts right. We don't have to go to war over this, well, literally, but, you know, just to try and have some accountability. I think it's so poor that, you know, the press are able to write these sorts of stories, but they do.
And I think for people who are professional journalists, I think this is a real insult to their profession, because most of them are genuinely trying to do a good job and trying to keep people honest. And it's a shame that you do get the minority who just decide they want to play just to get an article in and the readership up.
Yeah. Okay, good. Slightly more light-hearted, perhaps, and this closing element. The NCVO have launched opinions, thoughts on a charity sector manifesto. Given, of course, there's an election sometime in the not too distant future, what would we like to see in a manifesto, specifically on the charity sector, in any of the parties? Charles, any thoughts on any particular significant items you might like to see in there?
This to me is easy to say, I think difficult to deliver. Well, certainly the first part. I would love them to define where the welfare state stops and charity starts, so that we have a clear delineation of where the government's responsibility is for funding, and then as an add-on to that, I think that we need to change the way that we fund charities. I mean, it is ridiculous the amount of effort that goes into procurement and the way that we seem to have over-engineered everything because we're terrified of things being misspent. Where actually, if they developed long-term relationships and had some sort of way of being able to monitor and measure, actually that would be a much more productive way of doing it. And the other thing I don't think certainly the man on the omnibus doesn't realize is the cost that goes into actually getting these funds to be able to deliver. And I think most people will be horrified by that ongoing cost, because we just over-engineered it that every 1 or 2 years, you know, you've got to go back and ask money from government, where actually they're delivering a service which is part of the welfare state. So that to me would be two things that Labour could really make a mission amount, and I think that would be a massive benefit to the sector. Not
that we're assuming that Labour are automatically going to win, of course.
No, but the opinion polls certainly are giving us that indication, aren't they? I wouldn't want a second guess.
It does tie in with so Keir Starmer and some of the front bench were at Pro Bono Economics conference between Labour Party and civil society. Notice civil society last week. Very positive, I think, that the Labour Party were engaging in quite a big way. Puzzling, strange. There was obviously a lot of engagement. I ended up linking back through some of the links to the Labour Party's 5 key messages in the preliminary manifesto, if you like. So 6 or 7 pages, I think. The word charity was included 0 times. Civil society as a phrase was in there once. We will work with civil society. So, you know, there's a bit of a difference between what was, you know, what's been said and what's in the paperwork, if you like. But it was positive, I think, that there was, you know, that real significant engagement. Catherine, anything for you coming out of that, either the point about the NCVO charity sector or anything else?
Yeah, I worry about myself here that I'll become a bit kind of Braveheart and, you know, just go totally feral. But mine would be to ban all of these trite, ridiculous buzzwords, you know. And I think if I said to friends of mine, I work in civil society, they go, what's that? No idea what that is. I have no notion. So it's not big society, it's not civil society, it's not, you know, some would like third sector, others don't, charities not for profit, blah, blah. I think for MPs to understand, get your mitts off, it isn't yours. I think it's that independence from government, and also the tax issue. For me, I'd say you need to simplify. If people want to donate to charity, make it much more straightforward to benefit them and benefit the charity, and let's get on and start doing some of these things rather than the big fanfare and then nothing changes and it just rolls around and it's the same as before.
Just James, just one thing I would add is that having spoken to Matt Whitaker, CEO of Pro Bono Economics, the encouraging thing was Labour had gone to Pro Bono wanting to have a summit and wanting to engage with the sector. So I think they had acknowledged that their manifesto was charity light and hadn't acknowledged the importance of the sector. And if I may be so bold and just to plug, is we have actually got him coming in March, so we'll put a date up and possibly a link to where people can where he's going to be talking about.
So Keir Starmer.
So
Keir Starmer coming in?
No, sadly not Keir Starmer, but I got Matt Whitaker, who I'm sure is going to be a much more balanced viewpoint, whether it is Conservative or Labour that win the next election. But
okay. Very good. Thank you. And there ends the party political broadcast from the Rastomji Mosquito Party. Who will be standing at the election under a sort of yellow-green banner, I should think.
Yes. Yeah, frightening.
I think it's a Braveheart party, isn't it?
Braveheart, let's do it. Yeah.
I think our time is up there. So thank you both for your thoughts. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Charity Chats. Bye-bye.